everyone, it's Shelby here. Welcome back to A Little Literary Love. I'm glad you all are with me today. Today's video is going to be my March mid-month wrap-up. So these are going to be all the books that I read in the first half of March. Can't believe it's already over halfway through March. That's crazy. I read 6 books in the beginning half of March, but I will only be talking about 5 of those because one of the books was a St. Martin's Press book, so I will refrain from talking about that book until the boycott is over. If you're unfamiliar with the St. Martin's Press boycott, I will leave a link to the website below. Basically, it's just a boycott against this publisher. No marketing and no talking about or hyping up any of the books published by them, which includes like posting reviews on like Goodreads, that kind of thing, and talking about it here. Whereas like you can still buy these books, you can still read them, we're just not talking about them. So that leaves 5 books to talk about. I honestly think I probably would have read more, but I did read an arc that was very chunky and took me like a week to read. It was very good, so we'll talk about that one in a second. But first things first, first book that I read in the beginning of March is going to be Not All Is Lost Part 2. The second book in this Not All Is Omegaverse series by Elizabeth Knight. I read the first part of this at the end of February. Really enjoyed it, so I continued on with it because the first book does end at a cliffhanger, and so we're just kind of catching up with what is going on. Cambry, who is this Omega in this story, she has been kidnapped by these not so great people, and in her captivity, like, her captors are going to sell her to this other pack, but this other pack has certain expectations of her, so she's kind of going through almost like obedience training, learning how to be with this other pack, and she has her very personal bodyguard in this house that she's been sequestered to, and she has met him before, but they're not letting her captors know that, so that he can potentially try to get her out of this situation. She gets closer to him, finds out that he is actually an alpha, and they end up kind of bonding. So then they get back to her pack, she's rescued, and then they're just, the rest of the book is just them trying to take down this corrupt government that they are living in. I gave this one 3 stars. I did not like it as much as the first one. Overall, it is still very sweet, which I liked, but I was very bored with this one. The first half of the book, I was very intrigued. I was, how is she going to get out of this? How is she going to get rescued? What's going to happen? But then she gets rescued like halfway through, and so the very last 50% of this book is just this whole rebellion, taking down the government, coup, the kind of thing, and it was just very boring. We kind of lost some of the relationship bits that I really liked of this story, and I just felt like the last half was so boring, and I really feel like it could have been condensed down a lot more than it did. There is another duet with a different Omega in this series, which I probably will get to at some point, but this one just was very disappointing. Steam on this is going to be high. There's many trigger warnings in this series. It's like a it's very sweet, but it's like a darker sweet, I guess, because lots of dark things are happening, but the individual like little relationships that are going on are very sweet. So then the next book, this is going to be the book that took me like a week to read because it was a chunker. I got an arc of Hills of Shivers and Shadows by Godwin. This is now out, so you can read this now. So I was very excited to get an arc of this, my very first arc. This is a romantic suspense story. This is about Frankie, and in like the first chapter or two, she gets kidnapped right out from her very own bedroom. And she is taken away by this guy to this very, very remote and isolated cabin in the northern wilds of Alaska. And he is there with his 3 sons. And so this becomes a battle of wits, because her captor likes to play these different kind of like mind games almost. So she's trying to figure out how she can survive them. Who can she trust to try to get out? But then also like juxtaposed with this wilderness of basically just trying, even without the men there, she has to try to survive this icy, unforgiving wilderness. So yeah, so I ended up giving this 5 stars. I was blown away by this. This is a very chunky book. It's over 700 pages, but there honestly was not a single dull moment in here. I could not put this down. It just took me so long because life, of course, I am a mom, so I could only read here in little like snippets, but even then when I could read, I couldn't put it down. It just went from boom boom boom, everything was happening. I love the tension in this story, I love the emotion in this story, the fight that Frankie has of trying to survive, and her just sheer tenacity that she shows in this book was absolutely incredible. This is a very dark book, if you could not tell from the being kidnapped, but there are also a lot more darker themes in here. There's trigger warnings for there's a miscarriage, so I know that can be pretty triggering for some people. She's kidnapped. There's suicide in here as well. Suicide ideation. Like I said, this is just, it was a very dark book, which is on par for Pam Godwin. Pam Godwin has written some of the absolute darkest books I have ever read in my life, but her writing is just, it's so good. And this is going to be a trilogy. This does end on a cliffhanger, but the next couple books should be coming out soon. I believe book 2 is coming out in April, and then the 3rd book should be coming out June, potentially July, but it should be coming out very soon, and I cannot wait for it. Steam on this is also very high. I loved it. I can't wait for more. Then the last 3 books oh, I told you all wrong. I read 5 books, excuse me, and I'm only going to be talking about 4. Dummy. Okay, so the next 2 books that I'm going to be talking about, I was in a monster romance mood. I'm sorry. I finished another book, but I realized that I finished that after March 15th, so I'm not going to be including that. That will go in my next video, but I am in a monster romance mood at the moment. I've been reading a lot of monsters, so the next 2 books are going to be monster romances. Okay, so next one is going to be Agnar's Teacher by Jenifer Wood. This is the first book in her Abandoned on Niflheim, I think is how you say that word, series. I think this is maybe the only book that is out, but I think there's 2 more at least that she has plans to. I'm not exactly sure. Anyway, this is like a sci-fi / fantasy romance. This is about this girl, and Piper, and she just wakes up one day and she is in the land of orcs. She realizes that she was kidnapped by aliens and they just kind of dropped her off here, and the orcs are very friendly with her. So that's fair. That's, you know, she's cool with that. Little jarring that she can never go back home. But the biggest thing she's worried about is that she has anxiety and she takes medication for her anxiety. She also has panic attacks. So this is her biggest fear right now, which is also kind of ramping up her anxiety, is what is she going to do to help with her mental illness? And she hears about that they have this plant that some of their people will take for anxiety. But the town, the village that she is in does not have this plant. And they'd have to send somebody to a rival village that grows this plant so that she can get it. So they have like negotiated and they're like, oh, we don't know if we can go there just yet. It'll take a little bit, and this just makes her even more anxious, and she gets fed up and just decides that she's gonna figure out and find where this village is on her own so that she can get this plant so that she will not be anxious anymore and kind of like help her. So in all doing this, she meets Agnarr, who is an orc warrior. He definitely has the hots for her. Their first interaction is very comedic and very steamy right off the bat, and he decides he's not going to let her just go into this dangerous wilderness on her own, and he follows her to help escort her to this rival village so that she can get what she needs. And in doing so, they decide to have a lot of steamy, sexy times together, and you find out that they are fated mates. So I give this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed this one. I thought Agnarr was a sweetheart. I have dubbed him like King of Consent because every single step of the way when they are like engaging in sexy times, he is constantly checking in with her like, is this okay? Can I do this? Are you okay with this? So I loved seeing that. I also love the mental health representation with her in here, with Piper's character having anxiety. I also have anxiety, so I love seeing that, and I definitely understand her panic at not having her medication. I thought she's very headstrong, of course, for going out into the wilderness on her own, but I really loved her interactions and the chemistry she had with Agnarr and how their relationship developed over the course of the story. So I very much enjoyed it. Steam on this can be high, and I am very much looking forward to reading more books from this author. Okay, and then the last one that I'm going to talk about is going to be To Touch a Dragon by Naomi Lucas. This is part of a series of books that different authors have done. So I believe Naomi Lucas has taken on the tropical dragons of this series. So this whole entire series is called Venus Needs Men. So I think like Tiffany Robert also has some books in this series, and maybe 1 or 2 other authors potentially. But this is a fantasy romance. This is a world where there's been this like red comet that has caused things to shift in this world. And it has caused a lot of the men of this world to either die, or when they have babies, it's all women. So their species is going to potentially die out because they do not have enough men to continue to carry things on. So we have our character Issa. She is kind of this like almost like a warrior princess kind of person. And she has heard a rumor that, or like a myth, so to speak, of dragons, and that if you touch a dragon, they become men. So she hears this rumor and she's going out hunting because she's this badass warrior princess chick, and she runs into a dragon, and so she happens to touch this dragon and he turns into a man, and she's very shocked by this. Chaos is our hero of the story. He is the dragon, now human, and he is pissed. He is so pissed at her because she did not realize that when a human touches a dragon, He says they become mated for life, and he can never turn back into his dragon form. He will be a humanoid, because he does have like some small like wings, for the rest of his life, and he is no longer immortal. He will live a mortal life, and he is pissed about this. He's pissed about losing his immortality, his stronger form. He's pissed about losing his powers. So he absolutely hates her, but they have this magical mated bond now, and he's very attracted to her. So that leads to a bit of tension and a bit of steamy times. So I give this one 3.5 stars. This was a very quick story, and at times I felt like it was too quick. I like the tension between these two characters, but to me it just felt like we went from them like Chaos hating her to him being in love with her very quickly in a matter of like a couple days, and it didn't really make sense to me. I wish that would have been a little bit more drawn out, and it would have felt a little bit more realistic of him slowly coming to terms with what has happened to him and falling in love with Issa. But otherwise, it was a cute story. It was a very steamy story. It was very quick. So if you're wanting something really quick, this isn't a bad one to pick up. And yes, so I stand corrected. I thought I had more, but I did not. But so we're just talking about 4 books, and then the other monster romance that I thought I was going to be talking about, I will talk about in my next wrap up. So that is going to be it for this very short and quick video. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't already. I really appreciate it, and leave a comment down below with some of the books that you've really been enjoying so far in March. I love hearing from you all. Otherwise, I will see you on the next one. Bye, guys.